There's a pain in silence, in the absence of words we once exchanged freely. My mother's actions broke something inside me, and it became impossible to continue pretending everything was okay when everything felt shattered. I never thought I'd reach a point where silence became my refuge, but my mother's behavior left me no choice but to choose peace over the chaos of constant communication. I'm not angry, I'm just tired of defending what was never mine to defend. My mother's actions and their consequences on my peace of mind. Cutting ties wasn't easy. It took everything inside me to realize that loving someone doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my peace for their toxic behavior. Sometimes the hardest part of healing is letting go, especially when the person you need to cut off is a part of the family you thought would always have your back. I never imagined that my heart would have to make such a difficult decision to protect myself from someone I was supposed to trust most. But the cost of continuing to communicate was too high. It's not about rejecting love, it's about rejecting toxicity. My mother's actions forced me into a place of self-preservation, and it's been a painful but necessary journey. The silence between us isn't a punishment, it's a boundary I've had to set in order to preserve my emotional well-being after everything that transpired. I wish things could be different, but every time I think of reaching out, I remember why I had to walk away. Her actions took away the trust that can never be replaced. My decision to cut communication wasn't made in anger. It was made out of love for myself. The love I was seeking in you had turned toxic and suffocating. The more I tried to make sense of my mother's actions, the more I realized that trying to repair something broken beyond repair would only hurt me more. The hardest part of cutting ties was the internal battle, the guilt, the shame, and the sense of betrayal that I carried for years. But in the end, my sanity had to come first. I never thought I'd find myself here, where the love and connection once felt so effortless. But now I find solace in the absence of the chaos my mother's actions created. There's a certain clarity that comes from distance. What I once saw as love, I now see as manipulation. And in that realization, I had to let go of what no longer served me. The silence doesn't mean I don't care. It means I love myself more than I love the pain her actions caused me. I didn't choose to cut you off because I stopped caring. I did it because I had to stop caring more about your feelings than my own. There's no joy in severing ties with family, but there's peace in knowing that I'm no longer tethered to the chaos she brought into my life. My heart was heavy, torn between love and self-preservation. But ultimately, cutting communication was the only way I could heal from the wounds my mother inflicted on me. Every word exchanged felt like a battle, and the more I tried to communicate, the more I realized that what I needed wasn't more words, but more space to breathe and heal. I'm not bitter, I'm just protecting my peace. What my mother did hurt me deeply, but I've learned that healing starts with creating distance from the source of the pain. I had to make the hardest decision of my life, to cut off the person who should have been my strongest support, but instead became the source of my deepest wounds. It's not about cutting someone off for good. It's about cutting off the pain and the toxic cycle of behavior that prevented me from finding peace. At some point, I had to realize that my mother's actions were a reflection of her, not a reflection of my worth. And in that realization, I found the courage to walk away. I've learned that you can love someone from a distance. You can love them deeply, but still choose not to engage in a relationship that hurts you more than it heals. There's a sadness that comes with cutting ties with someone who should have been your protector. But sometimes protecting yourself means stepping away from the ones who are hurting you. What was once a source of love and comfort became a well of pain, and I had to walk away to find peace again. Cutting ties is never easy, but it becomes necessary when the person you love is the one causing you the most harm. I tried for so long to make things work, but when every conversation feels like an emotional battlefield, there comes a time when you have to put down your armor and walk away. It wasn't a decision made in haste, but one made after years of silent suffering. My mother's actions left me with no choice but to protect myself from further damage. I didn't expect my heart to break like this, but sometimes love isn't enough. The actions of the ones we love can tear us apart in ways words never can. The hardest part wasn't cutting the connection, it was accepting that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. There's no love left in what once was. Her actions pushed me to a point where I had to choose myself, and that choice led me to disconnect and heal. I've been through so much emotional turmoil, and at the end of it all, I had to learn that cutting off communication was the healthiest thing I could do for my heart. When the person you love most is the one who causes you the most pain, it's hard to understand the line between love and self-preservation. But when that line is crossed, silence becomes the only answer. I wish I didn't have to take this step, but sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from the people who hurt you, no matter who they are. The hardest part of healing is cutting off the ones who were supposed to help you heal. But I've learned that I can't sacrifice my peace for anyone, no matter their place in my life. Love doesn't have to be a constant exchange of words. It can be a quiet understanding from a distance, and that's what I've had to settle for after everything that happened. It's a strange kind of grief, loving someone but choosing not to communicate. It's a love that's buried beneath layers of hurt, and sometimes silence is the only way to protect what's left of your heart. No matter how much I loved her, I couldn't continue to allow her actions to destroy the peace I've fought so hard to build. Silence became the only way forward. The space between us is filled with memories of what could have been, but with every memory, I've found the strength to keep moving forward, away from the pain her actions caused. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to sever ties with the past, no matter how difficult it is to accept that the person you once trusted the most is the one you need to protect yourself from. I didn't want to walk away, but I had to. My mother's actions left scars I couldn't ignore, and I had to choose myself over everything else. Healing doesn't happen in a conversation. Sometimes it happens in the silence, in the space where you can breathe without the weight of someone else's hurtful actions. I wish I could go back and fix things, but I know deep down that the only thing I can push right now is myself, and that meant cutting off the connection that was tearing me apart. The hardest thing isn't letting go. It's realizing that you need to let go in order to find peace, even when the person you're letting go of is someone you love deeply. The silence isn't about holding a grudge. It's about choosing to step away from a toxic cycle that was slowly draining my soul. The distance between us isn't about hate. It's about self-preservation. I had to choose my own happiness over the hurt her actions continually brought me. I never thought I'd be the one to cut ties. But sometimes the love you have for yourself becomes stronger than the love you have for someone who is no longer capable of loving you the way you deserve. Every moment of silence feels like a small victory for my heart, because it's in that silence that I've learned to heal from the wounds her actions left. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Her actions had become a constant reminder of everything I couldn't control, and I had to free myself from that burden. I've learned that not all love is healthy. Sometimes love requires you to walk away and protect your peace, even if it means hurting in the process. My silence isn't a punishment, it's a boundary. A boundary that says, I deserve better, and that I'm no longer willing to tolerate actions that hurt me. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to step back and let go. It's not easy, but it's often the only way to protect yourself from the toxic energy someone else brings into your life. I never imagined cutting ties with my mother would feel like freedom, but the pain I felt from her actions made it the only option left to protect myself. The love I had for her was never the issue. It was the way her actions kept hurting me, and in the end, that love had to be expressed through letting go. There's no real closure when the wounds are still fresh. Sometimes, cutting ties is the only way to start healing, even if it feels like the hardest thing you've ever done. I didn't choose silence because I stopped loving her. I chose silence because I loved myself too much to continue allowing her actions to dictate my peace. I've spent years holding on to hope, but eventually I realized that hope wasn't enough. I had to choose healing over hope, and that meant walking away from the person I thought would always be there. The hardest decision was realizing that I couldn't continue to pretend everything was okay when my heart was constantly being broken by her actions.